One of the recurring questions that come to me is, when do I start preparing for prelims? Has the race really begun? These are some questions that my students regularly ask me. So to answer that question, yes, the race for Prelims 2026 has really begun. Okay? It means that you should now taper into understanding that your mains preparation should slowly be reduced and your prelims preparation should be increased. Right? In this particular video, we are trying to decode, we are trying to understand how can we ensure that our success in prelims is guaranteed, and also how our mains ticket is confirmed, right? So let us start with this understanding. First, we must look at the things that we must avoid, okay? There are some things that we repeatedly do years after years, and it wastes our potential, the hard work that we put in, the energy that we have put in, the time that is we put in, right? So all of these are energy busters. We should avoid them at all cost. Understand this, that year after year, if you are just spending 60 to 70% of your efforts or in the wrong direction, then it is much more amount of hard work than you give with respect to just working in the right direction and with the right effort in just 1 year. Okay, you are effectively doing more hard work to fail rather than and hard work to pass, right? So we want to optimize our hard work, our efforts in the right direction, right? So there are some things that we must avoid, okay? These are some things that we have covered in the previous video also. We understand this fact that more books is not equal to more marks. This is one of the misconceptions that must be destroyed from your own side. You must understand that it is not the number of books that matter, but rather it is sticking to just one source and revising it multiple times. Okay, even with respect to an example, with respect to modern history, okay, you have a book, you have spectrum, revise it multiple times, revise it 4 to 5 times, so that any question that comes from that book, I should be in a position to answer it. The second thing is not planning. Okay, there is a saying that says that if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. Okay, it is a very good saying, and it is very, very true, particularly with respect to this exam. Okay, many times we think that if we just keep on studying, if we just keep on covering things, then eventually the syllabus will get reduced and eventually I will reach a particular stop. I do not need to plan. But there are multiple verticals on which you need to work upon. Okay, and unless you have planned your strategies, unless the roadmap is clear in your mind about the race that you are starting and how will you finish it, it is going to be a deterrent with respect to your success. It is going to hurt your chances in the prelims, right? Third thing is studying passively. Okay, reading one book end to end, not understanding the concepts, just reading it line by line, not being able to memorize the facts, not being able to understand the concepts, not being able to internalize the concept is one more important thing that the ordinary aspirant would do. An aspirant who needs to, who will succeed in the prelims will require that he goes for active recalling, okay, active methods of study, wherein he applies himself, he applies the concepts that he has learned, he memorizes the facts that he needs to use while verifying whether the statements are true or false, right? This requires that you internalize the content fruitfully, right? So that you are able to even answer the tricky or the twisted questions, right? Then revision for later. Okay, many times we go on covering things in a forever manner. Okay, we say that once I complete all of these subjects, then I will start my revision. Okay, the covering of all those portions will take you around 2 to 3 months. Okay, if you start your revision after that cycle is over, then that means that your cycle of revision would be almost akin to the first time reading. Okay, so this means that continuous revision process should be there. It should run simultaneously to your preparation strategy, right? You should not keep the revision process for a later date. Then ignoring patterns, okay? Understand this, that we are in a competitive exam, okay? We have our competitors. We are not going for an academic research. This is a competitive exam and I need to take every advantage to this exam, right? One of the things is that the previous year questions help me understand what are the things that are important, what are the themes that are important, how they are asking the questions, even with respect to the simple questions, how are they asking me, right? And in what dimensions do I need to know all of those topics, right? If you are not decoding that pattern, you are studying for just gaining knowledge, right? It is not a directed approach which you have for cracking prelims, right? So these are the things that I must avoid, right? For this, I have created a 4-loop engine, okay? Something that was derived from the experience of successful candidates, including myself, right? This kind of a strategy is something that has been applied multiple times in the prelims, and it is with this confidence that this strategy works out, okay? It is very scientific in nature, right? It is not opinion based, it is factual in nature, right? It is scientifically backed, right? So I would suggest that you can also try to adopt this 4-loop engine method that I am about to show you, or you can just customize it as per your needs. Maybe you are doing some 3 to 4 things out of that portion, okay? You can just add a few things more into your preparation and then you would be in a path to success, right? So the 4-loop engine that I call, the first thing about that is PYQ reverse engineering, okay? Here we will understand how do I decode the previous year questions. It is not just reading the previous year questions, not just understanding what the statements are asking and just reading the explanation. It is not limited to that. I must break through the previous year questions. I must understand what are the statements. I must decode whatever I can with respect to the previous year questions, right? The second thing is smart notes, right? We read a book, we make notes out of it, and those are short notes, right? Are short notes going to help me in this exam? Yes, to some extent. But smart notes are the ones that are actually applied with respect to the previous year question. That means those are the notes that are tied to clearing this exam, that are tied to the patterns which are there in the previous year questions. That is your smart notes, right? Then iteration based mock tests, right? If we have to write mock tests, I have to base it on some number of iterations. How many mock tests should I write? Okay. What is the purpose of mock test? Okay. How should I analyze those mock tests once I have written them? Okay. Many people I have seen that a student would just write the mock test for the sake of completing those tests. They do not follow a concretized process for analyzing it, okay? Without post-test analysis, it is as good as not writing the paper at all, because the purpose of the test is to identify your gaps, refine your strategy, okay? Understand what will your strategy be in your final paper, right? These are some things that are important that you derive out of the iterative mock tests. The fourth thing is targeted revision, okay? The syllabus is huge, nobody is denying that, okay? But if you keep on revising things that you already know are strong for you, how are you going to address those topics which you feel you lack in, okay? So this means that there must be revision that is to be targeted, that should be based upon the gaps that I have observed in these mock tests, right? I should be revising things that are there in my previous year questions, the high yield topics, okay? Instead, what do? Instead, most of the students, what they will try to do, they will try to revise everything, not emphasizing on those important topics, not emphasizing on the gaps, right? So let us start understanding how do we go for each of these processes and how do we inculcate it in our study pattern. Okay, so the first thing is previous year question, reverse engineering. Okay, the first amongst this is high yield thematic topics. When I look at the previous year questions with respect to any of the subjects, whether it is geography, whether it is environment, whether it is economics, okay, whichever subject I look at, am I able to see that what are the thematic topics that are getting repeated year after year? Okay, am I able to see that? These themes are the ones that get repeated, right? When they get repeated, it means that there is higher probability of UPSC in this prelims 2026, they may be going to ask those questions, ask questions from those thematic topics. This means that they are something that are non-negotiable, right? So I must be in a position that these topics must be demarcated, otherwise I would be just reading book end to end and not understanding where to emphasize on, right? Thematic patterns are very, very important, and therefore you should have these kind of thematic topics when you are analyzing the previous question. Make a list of all those thematic topics, whether it is from economics, whether it is from geography, whether it is from history. Make a list of that thematic topic and you would know what you need to emphasize upon. Okay, the task would shrink a bit, right? The second thing is dimensions of the topic, right? Now you have analyzed, for example, you have analyzed that in modern history, personalities is something that they ask multiple times. Okay, now I cannot go on and read about every personality, right? There might be 120 to 150 personalities in modern history, right? That are significant, that are important, right? But with respect to understanding the dimensions, which means what has been asked about personalities, okay, where has UPSC limited itself to? For example, with respect to personalities, you will see they might ask about journals, weeklies, newspapers associated with that personality. They would ask about organizations that this personality was a part of. They would ask about movements like non-cooperation movement, Quit India movement, the movements that this personality was a part of. Okay, they might ask about any such special feature that was associated with this personality. So this limits the dimension for this topic of modern history, for topic of personalities, it limits the dimension. Okay, these are the only 4 things that I need to learn about any personality that is to be done, right? That is to be done. Okay, another example is from map based questions. Okay, for example, they have asked about how many states would you cross in minimum to reach from Kohima to Kottayam. This means that when I go for reverse engineering of this kind of a previous year question, I understand, okay, I understand that just to know where is Kohima, just to know where is Kottayam, I must have an idea of districts of the state, right? Districts of the state. Also, I should be clearly aware of the political boundaries of each of these states so that I do not confuse myself while counting when I cross Nagaland, when I cross the northeast, when I reach the South India part, right? How many states would I cross? So I must be clear about 2 things. One is the political boundaries. The second is what are the names of some of the important districts of the states, right? So this gives me PYQs, reverse engineering process, in which I am first talking about the topics and then also talking about in how much depth and dimension they are asking me these questions. All right. One more question from map based part. They once asked in the previous year question that which one of the following which one of the following cities lie on the same longitude or is closest to the longitude of Delhi, right? They gave options that were very nearby states with respect to the longitude, right? So I must understand that my map work should also help me to understand which parts are there on the longitude, which boxes do they fall on, right? So that I can guess whether the longitudes are there. The second thing is also about the latitudes. They have asked me what is the extent with respect to east to west, which is the leftmost, which is the westmost point, which is the easternmost point, right? Which of these lie on the same latitude, which one of these fall on the same longitude. So I must divide my map into grid lines and understand, okay, these are some of the cities that are important and they lie on the same longitude. That is how my map work would pan out when I understand through the reverse engineering process, right? Similarly, one more example from national parks. If I have a national park, if they have asked me, if you notice closely, in the last 25 years, there are close to understand this, that there are close to 120 national parks. But have they asked all 120? No, they are not. Okay, they have asked, suppose say 10 to 15 national parks. What is that filter based upon? Okay, this may be based upon the current affairs. This may be based upon something that has happened there, right? And then about those national parks, what are the dimensions that they are asking me? They are asking me location, they are asking me flora, they are asking me fauna, okay, they are asking me what kind of climatic pattern is observed, okay, they might ask me about the tribes, okay. So these 4 to 5 dimensions are the ones that I need to pay special focus upon with respect to the national parks. So any national park that is in current affairs, that is in previous year question, I must cover it in this 5-dimensional pattern, right? So this will further limit the amount of things that you need to study and it will align yourself to the previous year question, right? Third is the other papers plus recent years, okay. UPSC does not only conduct civil services exam, it has other exams also like CISF, right? So I must try and take out whatever questions that have happened, that have been there in the annual year for UPSC exam, right? This gives me a prediction tool. This lets me understand whether this kind of a question or a related question can come in my prelims also. Now for this, I would not suggest you that you go to previous year questions of suppose say 5 years, 10 years, 25 years. No, that is something that you should do here in high yield topics and dimensions of the topics. For other papers of UPSC, you could just focus upon the last 1 year, okay, only 1 year. Do not go beyond that. It is not something that is recommended. Then recent years. Even within this previous year questions, I would suggest with respect to the last 3 years at least. For example, 2025, 2024 and 2023. These topics, okay, the questions that have been asked in these papers, you must make notes out of it, okay. Any type of question, including the statements that are right, including the statements that are wrong, I must prepare my notes on it. It should be very, very comprehensive, right? Because it has been observed that many times these questions make their presence felt again in the coming papers, right? There must be along, like even if I have to be very conservative, I would say there would be 10 to 12 marks to gain if I am doing the recent year papers. Recent year papers means last 3 years, right? Okay, now coming on to this part, okay. Understand this, that I have placed this in different boxes because they serve different purpose with respect to PYQ reverse engineering. One is based on knowledge, okay. How much knowledge is non-negotiable? That means this is something that you definitely need to do. This is the bare minimum task, okay. It is non-negotiable for you to get into the qualified list, right? Now this is something that is more strategical, okay, and this is something that I would recommend again that we do only about for last 3 years paper, okay, because it reveals the mindset with which UPSC has been setting paper in the recent years. Okay, one thing is understanding the language of the statements. Okay, this is something that can proceed with respect to your schedule for studies. You could first complete this part, that is the knowledge part, then proceed on to the strategical part. Okay, this is something that is fun to do, and also something that is only based upon if you have done the non-negotiable part, if you have completed your knowledge part, if you have revised it multiple times, then you move on to this. Okay, this is not the sole thing. Okay, this is the core thing. Okay, so you have language of the statements. Oftentimes you will find extreme words. Okay, these are plain English words. Okay, these are not related to the subject knowledge. Plain English word. For example, you will have some, okay, any, drastically increase or decrease, okay, or steadily increase or decrease. Okay, you will have some statements with because. That means that UPSC is trying to explain that statement. Okay, so these plain English words can give you a cue of whether that statement is true or false. Okay, now I am not saying that this would be true 100% of the times, neither that is required. Okay, even if I can observe language of the statement, I can observe that if there is a presence of these words and that makes it true at least 60% of the times, then I am even better off even guessing with that kind of an accuracy, right? Just take an hypothetical case. If you are attempting all 100 questions and if you are able to attempt 65% accuracy, your job is done, right? So you will have how many questions? You will have a score of net 52 questions. Okay, that is a score of 104 marks. Okay, that is much more than what is required in the recent years, right? So if I am attempting 100 questions, I am also going for those kind of statements which are, for example, which give me a probability of more than 60%, then that becomes a part of my strategic toolkit, right? Because understand this, that I am also going for 100% accuracy in these part. In the questions where knowledge was non-negotiable, I am having 100% accuracy. There might be some questions that I might be leaving out. With that, I can use this toolkit to understand, okay, this is 60%, 65% of the times I have seen that this statement is true, or whenever this kind of a word is used, it may be false, right? So it gives you a reasonable amount of accuracy, but that is again based upon this 100% accuracy based questions, right? So you have to make notes out of it. Okay, just make notes out of these words and the probability with which they are correct. Do these for the last 3 years paper. For example, I carry out these words. I mean that if I have a word that is a statement that has the word any, I will search for all the statements that are there in the last 3 years paper. Okay, and I will check out what is the probability of it being correct. Okay, if it gives me a 65% of accuracy, or or you could say 60% of accuracy, then that is something that would be a part of my toolkit. That means when I'm attempting the question, I'm first applying my knowledge, then I'm applying with respect to the language, right? So you will have reasonable amount of accuracy with that also. Third thing that forms a part of your strategical toolkit is statistical patterns. Okay, if UPSC just had to test our knowledge, okay, if they had to test our knowledge, they would just give you one line question and they would give you 4 straight options. Okay, just 4 words, and that is done. I can check your knowledge with that. Then what is the reason that they go for so many different types of questions? Only 1 pair, only 2 pairs, only 3 pairs, statement, assertion and reasoning, statement 1, statement 2, statement 3, right? 1 and 2 correct, 2 and 3 correct, 1 and 3 correct, 1, 2, 3, right? These are different types of questions that they are asking. Okay, in the recent years, if you observe, this kind of statistics with respect to the kind of questions that are being asked has increased to 10 to 12 patterns. What is the use of having so much pattern in the paper? You must try to decode this. Okay, a lot many times you will find that you can emerge by analyzing it, you can have some kind of pattern. Okay, for example, I know that most of the times 2 pairs are right when we have only 1 pair, 2 pair, 3 pairs. When we have to go for matching the column, I must understand with respect to this kind of a question, it might be a possibility that only 2 pairs are correct. So I analyze when I am attempting the paper, I am going for understanding that okay, my knowledge has helped me up until this much. I am able to attempt, I am able to, out of the 3 options, I am able to eliminate 1. Then I am able to eliminate with respect to the language of the statement. Then with respect to the statistical part. If these 2 parts help you, the third part will confirm that your option that you are ticking is correct. You will be at a further miles ahead as compared to the other aspirants. Okay, where you will not be confused, where you will not start doubting yourself, where you will not overthink because you have done your homework. This is the homework that you have to do. That is the decoding of previous year questions. So this is what is previous year question reverse engineering. It is not just limited to just looking at the questions, reading the statements, reading the explanation and being done with it. Okay, and the more you dive deeper into these things, deeper into these dimensions, the more things you will find and realize are something that will help you in the actual paper, that will help you make decisions. Okay, a lot of decision making can be formulated at home itself, right? This is a sneak peek into what kind of things are already there present in the previous year questions, right? Now moving on to the next part. Okay, smart notes. So I must make smart notes out of the high yield topics. Okay, understand this, that high yield topic plus with respect to those topics, the dimensions in which the previous year question is asking me, I must make thematic notes out of them. Okay, reading book cover to cover or making short notes out of it is not going to help me. Smart notes means that I must prepare my notes in the pattern in which the previous year question is asking me. Okay, so what are those dimensions? What are those topics? Do I have notes prepared for them? Okay, these are the things that I must focus upon. If they are asking me newspapers that are related to personality, do I have a table that has the names of the personality, that has one column dedicated to the organizations they are a part of, that has one column dedicated to the organizations they were a part of, movements, organization, newspapers, journals? Do I have a list like that? No, I'm just revising, I'm just going through the text again and again. What good that is going to do for me, right? It is not going to help me answer the questions. A list like that is something that is very, very powerful, and that forms a part of your thematic notes. Okay, those are your smart notes. Second thing is, make it a one-pager note. Try to condense that information. Okay, it means that make it into a structural form so that it is easy for you to revise, right? Just for example, in geography I have soil. The chapter of soils is there. Okay, sometimes they will ask me about the soil. What are the nutrients that are present? What are the nutrients that are absent? What kind of crops that they can grow into, and what kind of which states do they prevail in? So these are the 5 things that they can ask me about soil. So what would be the best structure? It would be having a table. This is a table for understanding soil, second states, then the crops, then spread, then nutrients. If I make these kind of notes and I make it one-pager notes, It means that I am focusing, I am emphasizing on things that have been asked in the previous year questions. Okay, I am preparing notes out of the static portion in the manner that they have asked. Right? It will make your process much more easier rather than just flipping the pages and reading through it passively. Right? One pager notes, why do I say it should be condensed form of notes? Because more number of pages, more number of writing, more number of words that you use, it is just going to affect your revision cycles. Okay, if I have the capacity to read, suppose say 1000 words in 1 hour, then that capacity will be reduced if I have 2000 words, 5000 words. This means that my notes should be so much condensed that I am pinpointed with respect to what is being asked, and I am just revising those keywords multiple times. Okay, for that, condensation of notes is very, very important. It will increase the number of revision cycles that you can have. Then integrating with current affairs. Okay, understand this. There are some questions that would be based upon current affairs. They are quite linked with the static portions also. Okay, so current affairs are a type of an indicator of what can come. So these are very important along with the previous year questions. Okay, previous year questions offer me an insight of what kind of questions can be asked in the current affairs. This previous year question lens that we have done in the previous part, PYQs, reverse engineering, what we have done, it helps me to understand, okay, these topics are very, very important, and therefore they are recurring in the current affairs. Even this year there has been 2 or 3 instances where this topic has emerged, and therefore it becomes important part, and therefore I must complete the static portion as well as the current affairs part. It is not possible to go month wise every time. Okay, every time you will have 100 pages of monthly magazines, and by the time 12 months are over, you will have 1200 pages. How will you revise it? How will you focus on things that are more important? Okay, while current affairs are important, it is your static portion that needs most of your time because they are non-negotiable, right? So current affairs should be only understood with respect to the previous year questions, and also understood that they are indicators of your static portion that you need to revise. Second thing is, prepare theme-based notes if you want, if you have the time. Prepare themes for current affairs. Okay, do not proceed month-wise, May, June, July, August. No, proceed theme-wise. For economics, I must go for the banking system. Okay, Reserve Bank of India, what all questions, what all things that has happened within the year. With respect to agriculture, has there been any kind of scheme? Has there been any kind of scheme for the seeds? Okay, all of these become very, very important for you, right? So proceed in a thematic fashion for current affairs, right? Now moving on, we have iteration based mock test. Okay, many times I have seen students, aspirants would crib upon the fact that my score in this particular test was not up to the mark. Okay, the number one thing that you must understand is the objective of mock test. Why should I write mock test? Okay, there are one set of students who would say that once I achieve perfection, then I will write tests. Okay, that means, okay, that because it is psychologically embedded within us. Okay, we never reach that perfect stage. Okay, perfection is not reached, and then the mock test keep delaying. Okay, the delayed mock test will land you in trouble. You cannot solve a mock test in the last 15 days. It has to be a continuous process. This means the objective of the mock test, one is that you are able to revise the important topics. Okay, just before that mock test, you should be revising those topics that are important from previous year questions point of view. Okay, then the second thing is that you should identify what are the gaps. Okay, what are the gaps when I am attempting this paper? What are the gaps that I have observed in my understanding? Okay, you will be surprised to know that even the simpler of the facts that you've thought you have within your grasp is something that you are not able to answer just because the question's wording was something different. Okay, just because you overthought in those questions. Okay, so you have to eliminate what kind of gaps do I have. Okay, even after knowing, even if after preparation I'm not able to perform, then what is the reason? What are the gaps that I've observed? Whether it is with respect to revision, whether it is with respect to understanding of the concept, whether it is with respect to say guesswork. What are the gaps? Identify them, eliminate them. Okay, that is the purpose of your objective of your mock test. Okay, the third thing is, it is also going to help you build your knowledge. Okay, we may be sticking to one of the sources, but mock tests offer me an arena for gaining knowledge from other sources also. It does not mean that I have to go to that source and start preparing for these mock tests. No, it only means that in my knowledge bank, where does this fit in? I just have to gain that knowledge, right? Second thing is post-test analysis. Okay, post-test analysis is very, very important. I must be able to have understood what are the gaps in my preparation. Okay, very, very important. Second, strategy. Okay, I must try to identify with respect to the paper, whether it was a difficult paper, whether it was a moderate paper, whether it was an easy paper. Okay, I would know it from the scores of the toppers itself. Okay, if it was very easy paper, then people would have scored upwards of 120, 130, 140. Most of the people would have scored that much, right? So I would say that this strategy of when it is a difficult paper, how many questions can I attempt? Whether I get most questions wrong, okay? Whether I am able to gauge with respect to accuracy, how many questions to be attempted. Okay, this is to be ascertained. How many questions should I attempt? Okay, you keep on asking, how many questions should I attempt? Okay, even if you attempt 50 questions with 100% accuracy, you're not going to make it. Okay, or sorry, if you make 50 questions and you have 90% accuracy or 80% accuracy, suppose say, then it is something that will land you in a very troubled state, right? If you are attempting 100 questions with say 65% accuracy, then you are in, right? So I have to determine my accuracy level along with my questions attempted, given the fact that this kind of a test was difficult, moderate or easy, right? So this analysis must help me with the gaps. Gaps we have seen already, whether it is revision, whether it is with respect to your understanding of guesswork, whether it is with understanding the guesswork or the logical links that you have produced to achieve that kind of an answer. Okay, at least 3 iterations. I would suggest that when you complete a topic, do write a test on it. Okay, just by reading it and understanding it and feeling that I am confident, it is not enough. You must test yourself. This is actually something that will help you in the prelims exam also. Okay, it will help you to analyze how much time should I go for. For example, if I have to read 100 questions, if I have to solve them with a good amount of accuracy, how much time should I give to these iterations? So you should have how many iterations of paper. For example, if I'm talking about 100 questions, I must be able to read it 3 times. Okay, 100 questions means in the first part, I should be attempting all the questions, all the statements in which I am 100% sure of having the truth value as true or false. In the second iteration, when I read it again, I am just focusing on the options or the statement that I have not been able to see, that I have not been able to answer before. That means the first iteration, I have 100% right statements or false statements. I have cornered them, I have marked them, and based on that, I have selected or eliminated some of the options. This will land me up until, suppose say 30 questions in the first round. Okay, then you will be left with those questions in which you will have 2 options eliminated, 2 options would be there, right? So we will call it 50%. Okay, so you will go for targeting these questions along with those questions in which you have eliminated just one. Okay, you are left with three questions, three options. So you eliminate one more. Try to focus more upon those three statements. What is one of them if it is wrong? Okay, so this will lead you to answering near about 40 questions. Okay, in the 50-50 questions, in the ones which you are confused between the two options, you eliminate one. In questions in which you are confused between three options, you eliminate one. Okay, that is with your focus, it will help you. Now come back into the third iteration. Okay, now the questions in which you were sure with respect to two options being wrong, two options, among those two options you are confused, attempt them as well. Okay, you might get some more number of questions here, right? So this means that I must attempt the paper in iterations, at least 3 iterations. Why? Iterations help in increasing my accuracy. One more thing that is related to a psychological fact is that when you complete your paper, once you have gone through the first iteration, that you have flipped through the 50 pages, you have seen all the questions, you have read all the statements, and by that time it is just 1 hour, then you feel relatively more confident. You lose the fear. Okay, compared to when you are marking as and when the questions you see with respect to the answers, and you are also delaying on seeing the next few questions which you could have answered. You are stuck on just one question, right? So this strategy has to be very, very clear. Okay, understand it once again, that 100% questions, the questions or the statements in which I am 100% sure must be attempted first. They are the priority. I must not be losing out marks. I must not be losing out on time because of them. I must not be losing out to see them just because I was stuck in some difficult question. Okay, along with that, those statements in which I can eliminate two options or 50-50, that is how the probability will work. Those questions should also be done in the first round. Any such statements in which I can also eliminate one of the options, that can also be done in the first round. All of this has to be done in the first round. Then you will be left with the 50-50 questions or one option eliminated questions. Okay, in the second iteration, you will try to eliminate one more option. So the 50-50 ones would reach to the final answer, and out of 3 options that you were confused, those type of questions, it will reach into 50-50 domain. Right? In the end, the third iteration, you attempt those 50-50 questions as well. Right? This is your iterative method. Right? This is very, very scientific. This has been applied by many people. It has been applied by me as well. We have applied it and the results are positive. Okay? So you also try it, you will feel. Okay? You try to do it in your mock tests. Okay? Fourth thing is solve previous year questions as full length tests. Okay, last 5 years, 2021, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, during the end days, because you will understand that language, statistics as well as knowledge, all of these would be contained in these previous year questions. So when you mark them, you will feel much more confident. Okay, do this at the end also. Okay, as a full length test, so that your strategy is much more aligned to a real UPSC paper rather than a mock test, right? Okay. Now the last part, that targeted revision. There must be targeted revision. It should not be spreading yourself thin over reading things that are not important from the point of view of exam. Okay, it must be very, very targeted. You must have revision buckets which will prioritize what things are to be done for sure. Yes, high yield topics are to be done. Yes, what are the gaps that I have observed while attempting the test, they are to be done. Okay, yes, recent year papers are to be done. Okay, they must be revised. Okay, so these are your revision buckets. What are those topics? You must iterate them multiple times. Say 3 times, 4 times, right? 3 to 4 times, rather than making stronger things even more strong. Okay, make your weaker topics stronger, right? That is the goal, because that would be the best utilization of your time and that will convert your time into marks. The second thing is factual content. Okay, do not give the excuse that I am not able to remember so many things and therefore I am not feeling the mode in which I should prepare. Conceptual things I understand, factual things I'm not able to memorize. Everyone is in the same ship. Okay, and if you have to outcompete them, the factual content has to be learnt. Okay, and therefore it must be put into cycles of revision. Okay, now I'm not talking about the factual content, I'm talking about mainly the factual content that are there in your smart notes. Okay, like for example that format table for soils, it should be revised multiple times. Okay, you should at least have 5 to 6 iterations, only then you will be able to recall in the exam. Otherwise you will be confused, you would be spending much more time on that question and eventually getting it wrong. Okay, so this means at least start early for factual content, revise them consistently. Revision plan, this goes without saying. Okay, the plan must be there. Okay, I have shared a video on which I have discussed the 5-month plan. Okay, in that plan the first phase is of covering. Okay, covering everything that is necessary from exam point of view, then going for at least 3 iterations of revision. Okay, 3 iterations are important. Okay, at least 3 iterations. If you want to go for, if you have time and you can go for further iterations, that is only going to be much better, because it is ultimately going to translate into accuracy and more marks. Right? So please prepare a plan for all these revision cycles down to days and hours. Devote and understand how much time does it take you to revise a topic. For example, temple architecture, how much time does it take you to revise temple architecture? Suppose say it takes you 10 hours, okay, and it takes you another 2 hours to write a test on it, another 3 to 4 hours to analyze that test. So you have a time cost associated to all the activities that you are performing, and according to that, plan the days. Okay, you already have it in number of hours, divide it by the number of days that is left, you will get that maybe I just need to study for 8 to 10 hours every day, so that all of these things are completed. Okay, so this is with respect to targeted revision. Okay, so now we have reached the end of this video. I want to leave you with one important thing. Okay, that is, the journey towards success is not always easy or upwards. Okay, understand this, that while you would want to see progress in the number of marks that you are getting, okay, in the marks in the test that you are getting, okay, and it may not always be possible that you are scoring above what you have scored before. Okay, that might be a case. You just have to understand that the success journey in this exam, in prelims exam especially, is not something that is very linear. It will not always show a progressive graph. Okay, you might feel that at times you are not able to cope up, right? There is so many things to do, there's so many things to revise, so many things to memorize, so many tests to write, right? So I must understand that success, I have to trust the process that I'm running on. Okay, you have to evaluate yourself on the basis of the work that you have assigned to yourself based on those 4 loop engine, and whether you are able to carry them out or not. If you do that properly, you should trust the process. Basically, you should not be demoralized by consistently checking what are the marks, right? Because somebody might get good marks in polity, but it does not ensure that they will crack prelims. Why? Because they might be leaving out temple architecture from art and culture, right? You are the one who is covering it, who is iterating it 3 times. You are doing the necessary previous year questions, you are analyzing the high yield topics, you are analyzing the dimensions, you made your smart notes and you revise them properly, you identified the gaps also in your tests. So that is going to be much closer to success, right? And that is what you should do. right? So don't compare, okay? Don't think that it is going to be progressive. Just trust the process and write your exam peacefully. Thank you so much.